Part 21. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 201. Chapter 201, What do you think about getting the one you like the most? As a person who has been through this before, Jishu couldn't help but feel a little thump in his heart. With her son growing up like this, she had already been prepared for the brat to fall in love prematurely. After all, she had already found love letters written to him by other little girls in the brat's schoolbag in the 2nd grade, not to mention starting from kindergarten. The brat comes back from school every day with a bag full of food. I heard they were given by other little girls. She is not afraid of anything else, except that the brat will turn into a scumbag. After all, being too attractive to girls is not necessarily a good thing. It seems that we have to find a time for Laolu to talk to him. Jishu felt that it would be better for men to talk to men about this kind of thing. Ahem. Lucian coughed twice, pretended to be calm and got out of the bed and said, I can't sleep, so get ready and read some books. Okay, don't watch it too late, go to bed early. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Jishu didn't point it out. After all, the child is older, and it is normal to have some secrets. Seeing Jishu preparing to close the door and go out, Lucian suddenly remembered something and said to her, by the way, there is porridge in the pot. You can eat it after it is heated a little. The girl next door bought it for you specially because she was afraid that you would be hungry when you came back from get off work. Hearing this, Jishu's expression immediately relaxed, and a sincere smile appeared on his face as he said, Ning girl is so considerate. Then he thought of the brat he had fathered, and couldn't help but feel heartbroken, and gave him a fierce look, you, what's the use of having you? If you were as considerate as Ning Yetu, I wouldn't always regret having you. Lucian raised his eyebrows and said disapprovingly, why is it useless? Although you have not been able to give birth to such a caring daughter, I can bring your son back to you. I think that the girl was kidnapped back by herself at the beginning. Oh, it's not rare. They say that mother-in-law and daughter-in-law are natural enemies. What if the brat brings back someone he doesn't like? Judging from this guy's eyesight, she really couldn't believe it. Who knows what kind of wife he will get back? Although she is definitely not an evil mother-in-law, what if her daughter-in-law is difficult to get along with? She still likes the girl next door. Originally, he planned to adopt the girl as his goddaughter, but neither father nor son agreed. Just take the one you like the most, what do you think? Lucian salivated, looked at his mother and said, I like the girl next door, and I plan to kidnap her back to be your daughter-in-law. Don't you like that girl too? Sooner or later, a daughter will get married one day, but a daughter-in-law is different. Isn't it better than a daughter to be able to stay with you all the time? I have long seen that the brat has an impure mind, but I didn't expect that he was actually plotting against Ning Yetu. Jishu looked at him with a look of disgust on his face and said, it's no good. You don't even take a good look at yourself in the mirror. With your appearance, how can you be worthy of Ning Ning? At the end, he didn't forget to say, Ning Ning, the girl's taste is not that bad. Lucian. Has she forgotten whose biological mother she is? Has anyone belittled his own son in this way? She wanted to find a daughter-in-law for herself, not a son-in-law for that girl. Lucian was stabbed in the chest with a knife. He gritted his teeth and said, just tell me whether you want this wife or not. Don't tell me, it's really exciting. Jishu took a look at his brat. Although this guy is not good at anything else, he at least has a good appearance, so he might really be able to do it. End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 202. Chapter 202, You don't want to be jealous, do you? Jishu, although I think Ning Yetu will most likely dislike you, but if you can really bring her back to be my daughter-in-law, it will be of some use, and I will not raise you in vain. Full of disgust. Lucian. His usefulness is to find a suitable wife for her. If that girl really becomes his girlfriend, his status in this family will probably be reduced to that of a son-in-law. Until the next day, when the two of them walked out of the community together, they could feel the resentful look in his eyes. Lu Ning, did I offend you? Last night when this guy asked her if she could get extra points, she remembered that she answered like yes. Lu Xian, no, it's not your problem, it's also his problem. Who made him born with the wrong gender? Oh, then Lu Ning stopped talking. Lu Xian became even more resentful. Aren't you going to ask a few more questions? This girl clearly doesn't care about him. Lu Ning, you don't mean it has nothing to do with me? I shouldn't be able to solve the problem even if I ask. Lu Xian was so blocked that he could not speak. Just angry. During the lunch break, Lu Xian went to the toilet. When he came back, he saw Lu Ning and Song Tingzi standing in the corridor talking. He immediately pricked up his ears, but unfortunately he heard nothing, and then pretended to pass by the two of them. I'm leaving first, but before he could get closer, Song Tingzi turned around and left. He could barely hear the last 4 words clearly. What does that kid want from you? Lu Xian pretended to be casual and walked up to Lu Ning and asked. Lu Ning glanced at him and said, nothing. He asked me about the winter camp for the math competition. What winter camp? Lu Xian couldn't help but frown. Lu Ning, after the Mathematics League every year, a 5-day winter camp is held. This year it will be held in Yunjing. He came to tell me about registration. The expression on Lu Xian's face froze instantly. So, what kind of winter camp are you two going to attend together this year? It's not just the two of us, there's another girl in their class. The results of the preliminary round of the mathematics competition have come out. She, Song Tingzi and Yu Shu all won the first prize, and they all qualified to enter the provincial team. Yu Shu chose science when she was divided into classes, and is now in the same class as Song Tingzi. It's just that Lu Ning's relationship with the other person is average. Although they took classes together during the summer vacation, they are the type who would not say hello even if they met. Lu Xian's face did not improve because he heard that there was one more person. All he could think about was that this girl was going to Yunjing for 5 days with the pretty boy named Song. Even though the two of them live together on weekends, they are under the eyes of adults after all, so nothing will happen to them. This time we are going so far, we have to go for so many days, and there is only one teacher in charge. Lu Xian felt uncomfortable just thinking about this. It feels like there are thousands of ants gnawing in my heart. There is no reason to object. He couldn't help but darken his face, and his whole body seemed to have dropped several air pressures. Lu Ning glanced at the guy helplessly and said, "You're not even jealous, are you?" Lu Xian snorted heavily. "That's right, he is just jealous." "In your heart, do you think he is better?" Lu Xian exuded a strong aura of resentment against his husband. Lu Ning glanced at the other party lightly. "Do you want to hear the truth?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 203. Chapter 203. Are you angry? Lu Xian was choked by her question. "Forget it, you'd better stop talking." "Lu Ning, are you sure?" "Definitely, definitely, and definitely," Lu Xian almost gritted his teeth and replied. Anyway, even if she didn't say it, he already knew the answer. In her mind, she just couldn't compare to that guy. However, Lu Ning glanced at her and said, "Although you don't want to hear it, I still want to say that he is indeed quite good." Lu Xian's resentment and anger levels suddenly reached their peak. Is this girl trying to make him angry to death? "Are you angry?" Lu Ning asked with a smile. She found that this guy was becoming more and more cautious recently. It was this guy who bullied her before, but now, if she gets angry with him every once in a while, it's considered revenge. What do you think? Lucien was so angry that he didn't want to speak. He suspected that this girl did it on purpose. Lu Ning, on the other hand, accepted it and said, although he is excellent, you are not bad either. There is no need to compare your shortcomings with others' strengths. In terms of looks alone, the two of them are about the same. What the other has better than him is study. As long as he doesn't learn from each other, this guy won't be any worse than his opponent. The problem is that they are students now, so their grades naturally rank first, so it is not wrong to say that the other party is better than him. Lucien did not feel that he was comforted. Instead, he became even more angry. In short, you just think that he is better than me and more powerful than me, right? Lu Ning raised her eyebrows. Otherwise, what do you want to hear from me? Are you better than him, better than her? She dares to say it, but only if others are willing to believe it. Lucien choked for a moment and said, can't I be the best in your mind? He just wants to hear this girl say a few nice words to praise him. Is it that difficult? Lu Ning, I didn't say you weren't excellent. This guy just insists on comparing himself with others. You can't compare to that kid anyway, right? Lucien seemed to be stuck in a corner and couldn't get out. Lu Ning asked him back, why do you have to compare with him? Do you feel in your heart that you can't compare to him? So no matter what she said, in the end it all meant the same thing to his ears. Lucien was stunned by the question and couldn't answer it all at once. After a long while, he said angrily, am I no match for the other party? I'm just angry at myself. Why didn't I show my strength earlier? If I showed my true strength, what would happen to that kid? The person who accompanies you to the winter camp may be me. What's your expression? You don't believe it, Lucien said unhappily. Lu Ning, no, you work hard, I look forward to you showing your true strength. This girl is clearly not distracted. Lucien, just wait, I will prove to you that I am better than that guy. Lu Ning, can you prove it by playing games and sleeping in the evening during self-study? Lucien. That's right. Even if I sleep and play games, I won't delay my studies. Otherwise, how can I show my strength? Lucien said angrily and stood up from his seat. But because he started too quickly, he knocked down the stool under him. Ah dash. Just then a low cry of pain was heard. It turned out that when the stool fell down, it hit the girl who was passing by. Are you okay? Lucien frowned. No, it's okay, the latter lowered his head and his voice was as low as a mosquito. End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 204. Chapter 204. This charm has no place to be. Lucien glanced at the girl and said, if it's serious, go to the infirmary. After all, he hit someone, so it didn't make sense to ignore him. No, no need, the girl shook her head and whispered. Looking very nervous. The girl is not tall, has thick bangs, wears a pair of big black-rimmed glasses, and doesn't talk much. Has almost no presence in the class. Lucien didn't even have any impression of the other person. If the stool hadn't happened to hit him, he probably wouldn't have known there was such a person in the class. Seeing that the other party said it was okay, he stopped asking further questions, but the depression in his heart was relieved a lot because of this. Helped up the stool and sat back down. The girl also lowered her head and reluctantly walked towards her seat. No one noticed that her hand hanging by her side was clenched tightly, and her fingertips were digging into the palm of her hand. Cha-cha, what's wrong with you? Are your feet okay? The girl at the same table saw that she was walking unnaturally and couldn't help but ask. Zhang Cha-cha lowered her head, letting her thick bangs block her eyes, and shook her head. I'm fine. After saying that, she couldn't help but turn around and glance in Lucien's direction. That person is like a light, Warm and dazzling. People can't help but want to get closer. Even a little intersection will make people happy. Suddenly she felt a gaze from the side falling on her. She raised her eyes and looked over, and met a pair of beautiful and insightful eyes next to her. Under the thick lenses, her eyes were panicked for a moment, and she quickly looked away. Like a thief who peeks at someone else's beloved toy only to be discovered by its owner. Lu Ning looked at the girl not far away, and then at the guy next to her. A trace of helplessness and understanding flashed through my heart. Someone is really a walking hormone, and little girls everywhere are secretly interested in him. What's wrong? Lu Xian saw the girl looking over, with a hint of meaning in her expression, and her face couldn't help but be covered with question marks. It seems like he didn't provoke her, right? Even if there was, it was this girl who made him angry. Lu Ning looked at him and reminded him seriously, don't attract bees or butterflies in the future. When did I attract bees and butterflies? Lu Xian expressed dissatisfaction with this accusation. He did not blame others so casually. Lu Ning didn't say anything, but just glanced in the girl's direction. Years of tacit understanding made Lu Xian follow her gaze and look over. When he saw the girl who was accidentally hit by his stool, he immediately shouted, "You can't blame me for this. If you blame me, it's because I have nowhere to put this thing." Charm. Lu Xian's voice was not low. Zhang Cha-cha, who was sitting in the front row and had been paying attention to the rear, naturally heard it, and couldn't help but feel a strong sense of shame deep in his heart. He put his hands under the table bewilderedly, digging his nails into the legs of the table, and his head was buried even lower for a while. Lu Xian, on the other hand, pestered Lu Ning with interest and said, "Are you jealous?" When he said this, his whole body started to float. "I told you, there are many people who like me. If you are not sure, I may become someone else's at some point." Lu Ning turned around, took out a stack of unit test papers from her bag, put it in front of him and said, "Finish it before the next monthly exam, or you are not allowed to talk to me. If you spend all your time on answering questions, you won't have the energy to think about anything else. So as not to have nothing to do all day long and think too much." Lu Xian. End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 205. Chapter 205. Are the two of us mutually supportive? What if I don't do it? Lu Xian decided to be tough in front of this girl. Lu Ning, so what you said before were all lies. What words? Of course it's a bonus. Couldn't this person forget it as soon as he said it? Of course not, but what I said is that our family tradition is to listen to your wife, so are you admitting that you are my wife? Lu Xian said with a bad smile. Lu Ning, it seems that I accidentally dug a hole for myself. Forget it if you don't do it. She stretched out her hand to take back the test papers. Lu Xian hurriedly rushed over and said, "Do it, my wife's words are orders, of course you must do it." "Stop yelling, who is your wife?" Lu Ning rolled her eyes at the other party, but her ears couldn't help but feel hot. This man is becoming more and more shameless. "You are, I will recognize you in this life," Lu Xian vowed. "I'm too lazy to pay attention to you." Lu Ning glared at her, but there was not much anger on his face. Knowing that this girl was not really angry, Lu Xian became bolder. "Don't worry, it's China Southern Airlines. I will definitely pass the exam. My wife's position will only be reserved for you." Lu Ning looked at him and sneered, "Didn't I just say that there are many people who like you? If I don't grasp it well, it might become someone else's." He turned around and forgot about what he said. Lu Xian immediately expressed his loyalty to her and said, "That's nonsense. My heart for you is as great as the sun and the moon. No one can shake my determination for you." "Ha," Lu Ning sneered again, "you let me fully understand what a man's mouth is, a liar. Okay, you'd better do the questions honestly." To prevent the guy from saying any more shameless words, Lu Ning peeled off a piece of candy and stuffed it into his mouth. Sweet, Lu Xian bit the candy and smiled evilly and wantonly. Lu Ning twitched the corner of her mouth, feeling that the other party looked a little blind. After retracting his gaze, he ignored him. Time has entered November in a blink of an eye. It rained intermittently for several times, and the weather suddenly became cold. The highest temperature was clearly in the 20s 2 days ago, but suddenly it dropped to the teens. Many people in the class have caught colds, and Lu Ning was also unfortunate enough to catch a cold. I felt dizzy when I woke up in the morning and sneezed several times in succession. When he went out, Lu Xian saw that the girl had put on a thick coat and put on a mask. Her palm-sized face was covered by the black mask, leaving only a pair of big, dark, and translucent eyes. Lu Xian was short-handed and couldn't help but stretched out his hand to pull off her mask and said, "What's your look today?" Just when Lu Ning was about to speak, her nose felt itchy. She couldn't help but sneeze loudly, and sprayed Lu Xian's face with saliva. They were both stunned for a moment. There is an eerie stillness in the air. After a while, Lu Xian was the first to speak. "Tisk, do we really understand each other? Helping each other, your sister." Lu Ning's eyes were a little red because she had just sneezed, and there was still a touch of water vapor in her eyes. Her big eyes looked wet, like a cute and harmless deer. However, the next second, Lu Ning pulled up the mask. He glared at the other person angrily. This guy deserved to be sprayed with spit on his face because of his poor hands, but he still took out a tissue from his pocket and handed it to him to wipe his face and said, "I have a cold. If you don't want to get infected, stay away from me." Lu Xian took the tissue, raised his eyebrows lazily and said, "It's okay, I have good resistance. You're fine with me being hot or cold, so what's this little cold?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 206. Chapter 206. It's a bit expensive for my girlfriend. Lu Xian took the tissue and lazily raised his eyebrows and said, "It's okay, I have good resistance. You're fine with me being hot or cold. What's this little cold? Also, if I am really infected by you, do you think people will think we did something intimate, like this?" He pinched the thumb and index finger of both hands, and then put the fingertips to the fingertips. Lu Ning. "No, it's impossible, you're thinking too much." "Okay," the other party's tone sounded quite regretful. Originally, she thought it was just a common cold. Who knows, after arriving at school, Lu Ning found that her head was getting heavier and heavier, and finally she couldn't bear it anymore and lay down on the table to rest. Drowsily, just as he was about to fall asleep, he heard a knock on the table. Lu Ning reluctantly opened her eyes and saw a thermos filled with water in front of her. Lu Xian handed the cup to her and said, "Drink more hot water if you have a cold." Lu Ning was feeling dizzy when she thought of the online joke about drinking hot water. "My aunt is here, drink more hot water. If you feel sad, drink more hot water. If you have a headache or a cold, drink more hot water. Diarrhea, drink more hot water." In short, in the eyes of straight men, hot water can cure all diseases. Of course, apart from being a little troublesome to your girlfriend, there seems to be nothing wrong with drinking more hot water. Thank you, but Lu Ning just wanted to sleep now, so after taking a look, she closed her eyes again. Lu Xian was a little worried about her. After staring at her for a while, he got up and went to the infirmary. He came back with cold medicine when the school bell rang. He was about to wake up Lu Ning when he found that the girl's face was flushed and her lips were red. White. Lu Xian couldn't help but frown. He quickly reached out and touched her forehead, and found that the temperature was frighteningly hot. "Lu Ning. Lu Ning," He pushed her gently and called out twice. Lu Ning was in a daze at the moment. She heard the other parties cry and wanted to open her eyes, but found that her eyelids were heavy and she couldn't open them. Lu Xian's heart skipped a beat when he saw this. A flash of panic flashed across his face. He picked up the girl and rushed out of the classroom. At the door, he almost ran into the teacher who was rushing to class. Without any time to explain, he hurried towards the infirmary. After leaving the classroom, Lu Ning was blown by the wind outside, and she barely regained some consciousness. When she opened her eyes, she saw a nervous Lu Xian. "What's wrong with me?" As soon as he opened his mouth, he found that his voice was hoarse. "You have a fever, I'll take you to the infirmary." Lu Xian lowered his head and glanced at her. Seeing her waking up, his heart dropped by half. Having called her several times just now, but seeing no response from her, Lu Xian felt anxious and flustered as never before. Lu Ning's physical condition has always been good and she rarely gets sick, but this time the cold hit her hard. The school doctor took a look at the thermometer -39.2 degrees, and then said to Lu Xian, "The fever is too severe. Medication is probably of no use. Infusion is needed. In addition, take care of her family. It's best to have someone watching over her at night. The temperature may return again. If the fever continues tomorrow, it's best to go to the hospital for a routine blood test. Then give her the infusion quickly." Seeing the girl fall into sleep again, Lu Xian couldn't help but urge. Lu Ning woke up again and found herself lying on the bed in the school infirmary. An intravenous drip bottle was hanging on the bedside, and the tube was connected to her hand. As soon as Lu Ning moved, Lu Xian, who was sitting by the side guarding Di, stepped forward immediately and reached out to touch her forehead. Seeing that the temperature had dropped, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. "How long have I been asleep?" Lu Ning asked. "You've been sleeping for 2 hours." Seeing her about to sit up, Lu Xian immediately held her down and said, "Don't move around, be careful not to touch the needle." Lu Ning lay back down again, looked at him and said, "Have you been staying here?" "Well, do you want some water?" Lu Xian asked. Lu Ning found that her throat was dry and sore, with a burning sensation, so she couldn't help but nodded. Lu Xian stood up, poured a cup of hot water and set it aside to cool, then asked her, "Are you feeling better?" "It's okay, I just have a sore throat and a little dizzy." Lu Ning hasn't been sick for a long time. The most recent memory in her mind was when she was a child. However, her parents were busy at that time, so she was sent to the hospital when she was sick. Other children are accompanied by their parents, but she only has a nanny to accompany her in the hospital. Moreover, when I was discharged from the hospital, my parents had a big fight about it and blamed each other. Soon after that, her parents divorced, and Ms. Tang Li moved out of that home with her. After moving, her health has been good and no major problems have occurred, but that memory has always remained in her mind. Then have a good rest and talk less. Lu Xian glanced at the infusion bottle and said, "It should be over in half an hour. I will send you back to rest first." "I'm fine, I feel much better," Lu Ning said. "Do you want to go back to class first?" "Lu Xian, I have already asked for leave from Lao Li. Once you finish the transfusion, I will take you home first." "No, I think I can hold on to the afternoon class a little longer," Lu Ning said. "Don't be brave. The school doctor just said that this flu is quite serious. Many students in the school have been infected. Now that you are back in class, you are not only prone to infecting others, but also prone to cross-infection. And your fever has just gone away. It is likely to recur in the evening and tomorrow and the next 2 days. It is best to go home and rest. Don't go back to school for the next few days. Just stay at home to recover, and then come back to class when you feel better. As for school classes, you don't have to worry. I've already found someone to help take notes. With your ability, you won't be able to keep up just because you missed a few classes." The most important thing now is your body, and nothing is as important as your body. He was really frightened by the other party today. Carrying her to the infirmary was the most worrying moment he had ever experienced. He had never known that it was so uncomfortable to worry about someone or be nervous about someone. It is like being roasted on a fire and suffering. Okay, Lu Ning heard this and stopped insisting. Lu Xian looked at her and said, well, the doctor said you may still have a fever at night. It's best to have someone around to keep an eye on you. Do you want to call Aunt Tang to inform you? Lu Ning didn't know what she was thinking of, and her eyes couldn't help but darken. Forget it, my mother is so busy at work during the day, so don't disturb her. I'm fine. Lu Xian looked at her look and suggested, how about you stay at my house tonight? No need, Lu Ning refused, I feel much better now and everything will be fine. No, you can either stay at my house or call Aunt Tang. You can only choose one of the two. Lu Xian's attitude suddenly became tough. End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 207. Chapter 207. Come up, I'll carry you. Let me call my mother. I already trouble Aunt G and Uncle Lu normally, but I can't trouble their family even when I'm sick. When I called the phone, it showed that it was turned off. Lu Ning looked at Lu Xian, my mother should be busy now. I'll call her later. Okay, I'll take you home later. With half a bottle of water left, Lu Ning squinted on the bed for a while. Because she was a light sleeper, she woke up immediately when the needle was removed. When she got out of bed, her head was still a little dizzy and her whole body was weak. Lu Ning was planning to take a moment before leaving, but Lu Xian squatted down directly in front of her and said, come up, I'll carry you. No need, Lu Ning refused. Hurry up, Lu Xian stretched out his hand and pulled her onto his back. Lu Ning stopped insisting when she saw this. Besides, she didn't have the strength to show off. Lu Xian's back was very broad and stable. Lying on his back, Lu Ning could smell the familiar smell of shampoo on his head. This guy suddenly found out that there was no shampoo at home some time ago, so he had to run to her house to wash his hair. After washing it, I deliberately researched which brand it was, and then ran to the supermarket and bought a bottle of the same product. Lu Ning wrapped her hands around his neck. From her angle, she could clearly see his profile as long as she turned her head slightly. Long eyelashes like crow feathers, high bridge of nose, thin lips. Looking at his familiar facial features and outline, I seemed to have seen every detail of the two people from the first time they met to the present, frame by frame, scene by scene, like light and shadow flashing alternately in my mind. Like a drop of water falling into the lake of her heart causing ripples, or like a beam of warm light shining on the dark road and shining into her heart. Lu Ning looked at the person in front of her, feeling warm in her heart. The hand around his neck couldn't help but tighten, and she rested her head on his shoulder. Lu Ning was very thin, and Lu Xian carried her without any pressure at all. He arrived at the school gate easily. Since he had a leave note from the school doctor in his hand, the guard let the two of them out without asking any questions. Considering that Lu Ning was not feeling well, Lu Xian did not take her to take the bus, but called a taxi in advance. As soon as the two of them left the school, they sat directly in the car. After returning home and getting out of the car, Lu Ning refused Lu Xian's suggestion to carry her on his back again and insisted on walking home by herself. Lu Xian followed her to the door. Lu Ning opened the door, turned around and looked at him and said, I'm already home. You should go back to class quickly. Lu Xian, the doctor said that I can't let you stay at home alone. I won't leave until you call Aunt Tang. No, I'm really fine, go back quickly, Lu Ning urged. Lu Xian was also very insistent, just leave me alone. Your fever has just gone away and you are still very weak now. Go back to your room and lie down to rest. I will wait until you fall asleep before leaving. Okay, Lu Ning didn't say anything after hearing this, opened the door and went straight to the bedroom. This was not the first time Lu Xian entered the girl's bedroom. Compared with his room, Lu Ning's room was full of girlish atmosphere. It was full of cute decorations and stuffed toys. Most of those dolls were Lu Xian's toys. Caught by a claw machine. Almost every one of them carries the memories of two people. Lu Ning glanced at the guy and saw that he really had no intention of leaving, so she stopped trying to persuade him. She took off her coat and lay down under the quilt. End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 208. Chapter 208 Can't withstand the destruction. Maybe it was because he was still very weak, or maybe because he was back in a familiar environment, Lu Ning fell asleep after a while. This sleep was very deep. When I woke up again, it was already past 2 in the afternoon. Opened his eyes, looked at Lu Xian who was guarding the bed and said, "You didn't go to school." "Lu Xian, I saw it was past lunchtime. I was afraid you would be hungry when you woke up, so I cooked you some porridge. Would you like to get up and eat some?" Lu Ning hadn't eaten much in the morning because she felt uncomfortable. Now she was really hungry, so she nodded. Lu Xian turned around and went out, and walked in with a bowl of porridge after a while. The porridge doesn't look very good. If you look closely, you can see that there is a bit of black stuff mixed in. It must be that the other party did not control the heat when cooking the porridge and the porridge was mushy. Seeing her staring at the porridge bowl, Lu Xian coughed unnaturally and said, "It's my first time cooking porridge. I think it's pretty good to cook it like this. Do you want to give it a try?" "Okay," Lu Ning glanced at him, then took the spoon, took a spoonful and put it into his mouth. Apart from a slight mushy taste, everything else was fine. Seeing that the guy was cooking specifically for her own sake, Lu Ning felt that the little bit of mushy smell could actually be ignored. "Not bad," she said. "Really?" Lu Xian's eyes couldn't help but light up and he said, "If you like, I can cook it for you again tonight." Lu Ning couldn't help but stiffen, and forced a smile and said, "That's not necessary, I want to eat something else tonight." "Lu Xian, what do you want to eat? I can also learn to make it." "Lu Ning, I still don't want it. I want to eat the food cooked by Aunt Ji tonight." She was afraid that she might not be hospitalized because of the fever, but might end up in the hospital because of eating the food cooked by her. Her body is very weak now and cannot withstand the other party's destruction. Okay, Lu Xian was quite self-aware and knew that his craftsmanship could not compare with his mother's. Since this girl wants to eat his mother's cooking, he is not in a hurry to show off. Tang Li didn't call until almost night. "Honey, I'm on a business trip in Yunjing now, and my phone just ran out of battery. Is there anything wrong with you calling me?" She recently took on an administrative litigation case. She happened to be on the plane when Lu Ning called in the afternoon. After getting off the plane, she found that her mobile phone was low on battery, so she left it in the hotel to charge, and then went to meet the client. Only then would he have time to call Lu Ning back. Lu Ning rarely called Tang Li at school, so when Tang Li saw the call reminder, he was worried that something had happened to her at school. It's just that the case she is representing will be heard in the court in Yunjing tomorrow morning. As an attorney, she must attend the court, and she will not be able to leave until tomorrow afternoon at the earliest. "Mom, there's nothing wrong with me. Maybe I accidentally bumped into her cell phone." Knowing that the other party was not in Nanjing, Lu Ning didn't plan to tell the other party about her illness. It would be useless and there would be one more person to worry about. "As long as it's okay, if anything happens, I can ask your Uncle Song for help, otherwise, I can ask your Aunt Ji and Uncle Lu for help." "I know, I'm fine, don't worry." "Well, I still have a lot of questions to finish. I'll finish them first and won't tell you any more." After Lu Ning hung up the phone, she stared at her phone, pursed her lips, and was about to put the phone down when she saw the door to the room was opened, and Lucien's figure appeared at the door again. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 209. Chapter 209 Assists. What did Aunt Tang say? Lucien glanced at the mobile phone in her hand and asked. My mother went to Yunjing on a business trip and was not in Nanjing. Forget it if Aunt Tang is not free. There is still me. It's okay. I know you won't agree to let you stay at my house tonight. I have planned everything. I will stay here to take care of you at night. I have prepared the quilt. Now, let's sleep on the sofa in the living room. No, I feel much better now. You can go back to sleep. In this kind of weather, it's easy to catch a cold while sleeping on the sofa. Lucien sat down on the chair in her room and said, I won't worry about leaving you alone at home. Since you don't want to sleep in my house at night, then I have to live here. You don't need to worry about me, just treat me as me. It doesn't exist, just sleep with you. By the way, my mother is already cooking. Will you go over and eat by yourself later, or shall I bring it over for you? No need to bring it over, I'm much better already, Lu Ning said. Okay, then I'll go back and see if she's ready, and I'll call you later. Lucien stood up and prepared to walk out. Lu Ning stood up from the bed and said, I'll go with you. I've been lying there all afternoon, and I want to get up and take a walk, otherwise I'm afraid I won't be able to sleep at night. Okay, I'll wait for you outside. Lu Ning put on her coat and went next door with Lucien. As soon as Jishu saw her coming, he said, Xian said you were sick, so I specially cooked some porridge and fried 2 lighter side dishes. Lucien on the side heard this and said, didn't I tell you that this girl doesn't want to drink porridge? I asked you to make something else for her. What do you know? Jishu glared at him, people who are sick must have little appetite, so porridge is best. He then said to Lu Ning, when you recover, Aunt Ji will prepare delicious food for you. Thank you, Aunt Ji, Lu Ning said. Jishu smiled and said, okay, go and sit down quickly and let Xian serve you the porridge. I'll bring the dishes over and then you can eat. No, I can do it myself. Lu Ning was about to go to the kitchen. However, Lucien held his shoulders and sat down on the stool and said, okay, just sit down and let the patient enjoy the patient's welfare. I'll take care of it. Seeing this, Jishu couldn't help but smile and said, the brat finally knows how to take care of others. Otherwise, with his temperament, I don't know which girl will be able to fall in love with her in the future. Your son, I am so handsome and loved by everyone. Are you worried that you won't be able to find a wife in the future? Don't worry, I will either not look for you or find you the best daughter-in-law, Lucien said, raising his eyebrows deliberately. He glanced in Lu Ning's direction. Lu Ning couldn't help but feel her cheeks heat up, and gave him a warning look, signaling him to restrain himself in front of adults. Usually that guy just said what he said in front of her, but she always felt uncomfortable saying some meaningful words in front of Aunt Ji. However, Jishu understood the brat's hint, glanced in Lu Ning's direction and said, you're not feeling well, and you need someone to take care of you at night. Uncle Lu and I are both older, and we can't stay up late at night. It's easy to get sleepy when it's too late, and you'll sleep very hard. I'd better let the brat take care of you at night. He's a young man and can handle it, so he'll be fine even if he doesn't sleep all night. Although Jishu felt that his brat was not good enough for him, he was still his biological child. What's more, the idea of letting Ningye to be her daughter-in-law is indeed quite exciting. End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 210. Chapter 210 His thoughts are clear. Lucien quietly gave a thumbs up to his mother. This is indeed the best assist. Sure enough, telling his mother that he wanted to pursue that girl was the most correct decision. Fighting alone cannot compare to the power of teamwork. Lu Ning originally thought that the guy's decision to go to her house to take care of her was his alone, but he didn't expect that even Aunt Ji knew about it. And Aunt Ji didn't object. Don't you think it's strange that this guy went to take care of her? After all, they are both very old. Shouldn't parents consider keeping a certain distance between them? Glancing in Lucien's direction, Lu Ning said, Aunt Ji, I'm much better now. I don't need anyone to take care of me at night. Ji Shu said, I promised your mother to take good care of you. Now that you are sick and she is not here, Aunt Ji should have taken care of you. But if Aunt Ji's body is not up to par, she will have to let the brat take care of you on. You two have had a good relationship since childhood, and Xian has always treated you as a sister. It is the duty of a brother to take care of his sister. And I have always been worried that the brat will not take care of others, and no girl will like him in the future. It just so happens that while this is an opportunity to train him well and let him learn how to take care of others. Lucien, damn my sister, he clearly wanted that girl to be her daughter-in-law. But for the sake of his mother helping him, let's just let my sister be my sister. Sister Qing is also considered a younger sister. Lu Ning saw that even Aunt Ji had said this, and that guy would probably not agree to let her alone. Forget it, he can take care of it if he wants. After eating, Ji Shu asked Lu Ning to go back and rest early. Back next door, Lu Ning saw the quilt on the sofa, paused in her steps and said, Don't sleep in the living room. The room where my mother slept before is still empty. Go and sleep in it. Her mother, after moving out, the previous master bedroom has been empty, everything is there, and I can sleep in it after a little tidying up. Lucien glanced at the room she was talking about and said, It's not good for me to stay in the master bedroom. Otherwise, why don't we change? How to change? Lu Ning didn't react at once. Lucien, you go and stay in the master bedroom, and I'll sleep in your room. Lu Ning, who could see through the guy's thoughts at a glance, rolled his eyes at him angrily and said, You have a beautiful idea. Lucien didn't feel embarrassed when he saw that his wishful thinking had failed. Anyway, his thoughts towards that girl were always clear and there was no need to hide it. Hearing this, he said with a slight regret, Forget it, I'll sleep in the living room. Whatever you want, she kindly let this guy sleep in the bedroom, but he pushed for it. You should let him sleep in the living room. Lu Ning was too lazy to pay attention to him anymore and went back to the room directly. Lucien followed in and said, You slept for so long in the afternoon, and you definitely can't fall asleep now. Do you want me to chat with you for a while? Lu Ning, no need, no need, no need. Okay, Lucien raised his eyebrows, but he didn't move. Lu Ning raised his eyes and looked at her and said, Aren't you going out? Lucien, I'll wait until you fall asleep before I go out. No, Lu Ning said, you can go do your own thing first and don't need to worry about me. It's because people feel too uncomfortable during the day and have no energy, so they can fall asleep with that guy staring at them. She was very awake now, but this guy was still staring at her like it was daytime, so how could she sleep? End of this chapter.